All right, guys, today we are doing the pros and cons of living in Medellin, Colombia. And so happy to be back here, guys. We are going to be covering a lot of different things, but our guest today is Wes. Wes, go ahead and introduce yourself. Thank you so much for being here.
Cool, man. Yeah, thanks. I am originally from Hacienda Heights, which is actually the neighboring city where Brian's living right now, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And I moved to Colombia January of 2020. And I lived in Medellin for about a year and 2 months. And then now I currently live in Manizales, Colombia, which is about 4 hours away by bus, but it's still kind of in the same area. It has the same culture as Medellin. It's just not a lot of foreigners here. You can only really live here if you speak Spanish. And yeah, I have a restaurant. I have a YouTube channel that I talk about my life in Colombia, and that's how he found me. So
yeah. So you lived in Medellin for a little bit, right?
yeah, I was there for a year. So I arrived in like February of 2020 and I left March of 2021. So a little over a year.
Got it. Awesome. Okay. And you saw it like right before the shutdown, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And then like now post kind of thing. How are things like now that you've seen everything kind of full circle? How are
Right.
things currently?
Yeah. So a couple months ago, the president said that if a city has a vaccination rate of 70% or higher, people don't need to wear masks anymore. And literally after he said that, no one gave a shit about masks. You just have to you'd have to wear it when you go into like malls and stuff. But like when people go to concerts, people go to church, and like huge crowds of people, and nobody wears masks. Nobody cares anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. That's kind of like the general feel here in the States
But
too.
you need to be vaccinated in order to go into the country. They did check when I came back.
Well, cool. Let's go into the pros of living in Medellin. So first we have cost of living, and tell us all about it.
Yeah, I would say so. The dollar is really strong right now. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, the dollar was worth 1,700 Colombian pesos, and now it's worth like 3,700 Colombian pesos. So our dollar has doubled, which sucks for Colombians because their money has devalued a lot. But for us, it's really good. So anything that you'll be paying, like living expenses here in Medellin, it's about a third of the cost that you'll be paying in like a big city in the States. Price of meals are about half, and just everything in general. It's fun. And if you want to cook, like a bunch of ingredients, produce, that's all cheap and there as well. It's all fresh. So just overall, the cost of living is like you can get by in a small city where I'm living in with $1,000 a month. And then in a big city like Medellin, I would say $1,500 to $2,000 a month, and you're chilling.
Yeah, and then just to preface, guys, so this is like from the perspective, like more from a Western kind of perspective. If you're thinking about moving to Colombia, Medellin, but there's a lot of different perspectives that people from all over the world I know come and to live in Medellin. But with cost of living and let's just hit on like rent, for example, just
Sure.
kind of
Yeah.
a big one. What is that like? One bedroom or like a two bedroom? How does that kind of like look?
Well, it depends. Do you want it to be furnished or not furnished? Because that changes the price drastically.
Let's do unfurnished.
Unfurnished. So you're looking for like a one bedroom, like an apartment studio. I'd say you'd probably like $300 a month, $400. You want a one bedroom apartment, it's around like I would say 300 to 400 as well. If you want a two bedroom place, I would say $500 to $600. But I wouldn't recommend most foreigners come and get unfurnished. I would just recommend them staying in an Airbnb. It's just less hassle. The real estate companies here are kind of snakes, so they take advantage of foreigners. I'm currently suing the company that helped me in Medellin because they still owe me money. It's just kind of like that in Medellin. You got to be careful because it's there's a lot of rats there.
I guess with that being said, do you have anyone you would recommend?
Yeah, so I have where I lived in Medellin. It was like a shared home, like a shared housing thing. It was like a floor in a house, and it was like 6 rooms. And I just rented a room. That was cheap. That was like $200 a month. And I enjoyed it because it allowed me to meet people. It allowed me to really to practice my Spanish because I live with locals. And I can recommend that. We can put that in information in the video afterwards. Cool. I also recommend like going to hostels. Hostels are always fun, but like Airbnb is probably the safest way until you get your feet wet. And then once you have Colombian friends, they can help you try to find a place.
I'm not sure if you know, but like if you wanted to buy furniture in Colombia, like is it easy? Is it hard? I don't know. Like,
yeah, it also depends where you look. They have the big chain, like brand name stuff, and those cost pretty much about the same as like American prices. If you know where to look in El Centro, where all like the people they make the fabricantes, or where they fabricate the muebles thing. How to say that? Furniture. Where they fabricate the furniture, you can get it for a lot cheaper, but it's sketchy if you don't know any Spanish and you don't have any friends. So that's the trade-off, right? Like people
Yeah.
complain about gringo prices, but you only get local prices if you know where to go as a local, you know?
All right, and we're gonna touch that on later on. Let's go into the next kind of the pro, which is the location and like location of Medellin and also the remote conditions of
Yeah,
working in Medellin.
I would say Medellin, everybody loves the weather there, which is really nice. Fortunately, it suffers from pollution. We'll talk about that later. But the overall, like the city is really beautiful. There are a lot of beautiful parks everywhere. There's a lot of green, there's a lot of trees. The internet's actually really good. It's a fairly modern city, so you still get really fast internet. But it's very highly populated. So the malls are actually really advanced and super nice as well. It's overall like it's a lot better than you think, Medellin. Super nice.
Okay, so for you said internet is good. Like, is it in certain pockets that the internet is good, or is it like certain buildings, or or does it vary? Or
No, I mean, I haven't had a bad experience. Like where I live now in Manizales, there was a couple of weeks where, for some odd reason, they were doing like work on the street and they cut my internet for 2 weeks.
hmm,
So I was out for 2 weeks, but just that was my only bad experience. Every other time, it's been okay.
yeah,
Sometimes if there's like really heavy storms, because we've been experiencing a lot of rain,
hmm,
that sometimes the Wi-Fi will go out for a little bit or the energy will go out, but it's not very common, and it usually doesn't happen in the rich areas, like almost never.
makes sense. And you could always like go to a cafe, I'm sure, like to upload
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly.
Oh, and then the airport location wise, how what's the experience look like?
So the airport's located outside of the city. You have to take like a taxi or a bus or like a shared taxi with people to get into the city. I think it's about 40 minutes. There's a couple of ways to do it. There's like a cheaper way. It takes a little longer and you don't go through the tunnel, or you can go through the tunnel and it's like 30 minutes, I think. And it's a little more expensive, but I think the foreigner culture there has just kind of ruined the city.
Hmm.
But from what I remember, I took a shared taxi and it cost me like 30 mil Colombian pesos, something like that, which is like $8.
Fair enough, fair enough. But it's it's fairly easy to get to the airport. Kind of like
Yeah.
if you wanted to like go back to wherever maybe you're from.
Yeah, it's you just take a taxi
Yeah.
to anywhere. It's like it'll probably be like 20, $30. It's not that big of a deal. I love public transportation.
Shouldn't-
And the
yeah.
public transportation in Medellin is actually very good. That's another plus that we should talk about.
Yes,
Because it's the only city with the metro.
that's the next one is transportation. So
Yeah. So taxis are there. The average taxi, you're probably going to pay like $4 or $5 to really go halfway through the city. But I would always recommend just taking the metro, because there's so many people now. In peak hours, it gets really, really crowded. But if you're not going through peak hours, you can get anywhere in the city, because the way Medellin is set up, it's a valley, and it's just like a big valley like this. So the metro goes right down the middle and it kind of splits up sometimes, but you can go from one end to the other, and you just get off the metro and you take a taxi to your destination. And it's very simple. It's very nice.
yeah, and then and I know understand for Westerners the Ubers is very affordable.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
the Uber is it just Uber? Or is it or Uber Lyft or I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
So here's a pro tip. So Uber, they banned it technically a while ago, but it still exists. But they have like low key Colombian apps that are a lot cheaper. There's one called DIDI.
Ah,
The other one's called Beet, and it works the exact same as Uber. And it's better that you do that, because a lot of times when you go in a taxi, the taxis will overcharge you. They'll make you do like roundabouts and stuff, and then they'll overcharge you. This has happened with the apps, but at least for the apps, you can fight it, and they'll usually refund you the money. So,
yeah, there's like a little more transparency.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. Everyone's always running a hustle.
Yeah. It's a problem with a big city in Latin America, man.
Okay.
I'm not gonna lie, man. It's not the safest. It's safer in the States than it is in Latin America.
Let's touch on the food and the culture as a pro.
Yeah. So the culture, Colombian people are some of the most friendly you'll meet. It's very common that they'll talk to you. You'll hang out with them. More Medellin, but the thing with Medellin, just like any big city, is that a lot of times when they're nice to you, they kind of want something from you.
Hmm.
But just in general, Paisa people are very friendly. You'll get to know your neighbors. You can say what's up to your neighbors. It's very polite. It's common to like say what's up to people on the street. You don't walk just like your separate ways. And people, they're just very welcoming in Medellin, just the Paisa culture. Yeah. And the dancing culture is really big. If you go out, people are super friendly. So yeah, I love Colombian culture. It's one of the biggest pros that I have living here, but I live in a different city, so it's a little bit different here than it is in Medellin.
Nice to hear people are friendly. Yeah, here in I guess in the LA area, things are very like go go go.
Yes.
Like hurry up. So
Yes. Yeah.
so but let's touch on the food a little bit. So yeah, break it down for us.
Colombian food is not that good though. I'm not gonna lie. It's pretty healthy. It's healthier in the sense it's just arepa, which is like their cornbread kind of thing, but I don't like it because I don't think it has a lot of flavor. And it's like meat, rice, potatoes, salad, and like a soup. And it's just different formations of that. That's Colombian food in a nutshell. In Medellin, there's a lot more foreign food that's coming into the country now.
Hmm.
And they're in the more like uptown upscale places, but the sushi is actually pretty good in Colombia. The Peruvian food is pretty good. And just a lot of new, nicer restaurants that are popping up there. So I like Colombian food because it's cheap and it's healthy, but they also have options for like the higher end for mostly catering to foreigners.
How's the beer?
It's pretty good. I like they have
Okay.
Club Colombia, which is like the and they have like Club Colombia is like the cheaper brand name from Colombia, and that's pretty good. They have like a red one, a black one, and then gold one. Kind of reminds me of Modelo. Like you know how Modelo has like the negro, has the
Yeah.
negra blanca, and I think they have dorada, and I think they have roja también, and it's the same. Like it's pretty good. But they have like BBC, which is like a more the craft beer company that they have here. It's pretty good.
Okay.
I would say it's good. Yeah, it's
Are,
just like any Latin. It's not as good as Europe, obviously, but it's like Latin beer. I think is pretty solid.
are there like multiple types of craft beer, or is it just like there's just like this is what we have kind of thing?
Yeah, the options are definitely not as big as it is in the States. No.
Got it. Because when I was in Belize and there was like two types of beer, and if you've been to Belize, you know, Belkin and something else, and I was like, where am I? I was like confused.
Yeah.
It's like and then I went to Costa Rica and there was a plethora of options, and I was like,
Interesting.
oh my
Yeah.
gosh, like this is great.
But I think
So
Costa Rica is there's a lot of foreigners there. It's an expat destination as well, so that's probably why.
very Western,
Yeah.
100% super Western. Yeah. So I was curious, like in Colombia, what does that look like? So it sounds like it's like there's more than two options.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's cool. That's a plus. And then I'm sure hopefully it'll grow
Yeah.
in the future. But also I want to touch on like so you touch on Colombian food, and then so I'm sure we have Western type of food in Medellin and stuff.
A few years ago, Colombia got introduced to hamburgers, and then now, like everybody's about hamburgers, wings, pizza, and like hot dogs. And it's just huge in Colombia for some reason. Like American fast food is just all the rage. So you'll notice that once you come to Colombia, like every place for some reason sells hamburgers. Every place sells, yeah, hamburgers, wings, and pizza. Those are the big three. But they're pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. Like the pizza is not as great as it is in the States, but it's not terrible, you know. And the hamburgers here are actually pretty good. I really miss In-N-Out just because that its flavor is so distinct, you know. It's one of those things that like you can only get it when you grew up in it, right? Because I heard a lot of foreigners that hate the way In-N-Out tastes, but it's because we grew up in LA that we love it. So
Yeah.
I miss just because it's so iconic. But yeah, in general, like the hamburgers here are actually pretty good.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. And then something I was interested in is the grocery stores. So like buying food.
Yeah, the produce is pretty cheap here and it's fresh. The produce stuff, like cereal, candy bars, things that are a little like oatmeal, things that are a little more produced are pretty much the same price it is in the States, but all the actual produce, fresh stuff, that's way cheaper here, and it's
Hmm.
fresh and it's delicious. It's super good.
Yeah, so, and you said it's like from the farm, like they literally
Yeah.
get it. Like
Yes, yes.
you could say it's organic in a sense. Like
Yeah, it's more organic. I mean, it's not like certified organic. I don't know what the term is, but
yeah,
it's not as processed as it is in the States. And you can tell, like when you eat it, it tastes different.
you could tell when you eat it. Yeah, like if you
Yeah.
get something organic versus not, and you're like, how come these tomatoes taste better?
Yes, they really do, and they really do. Yeah,
You're like, that's so weird. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Healthcare.
yeah. Healthcare here is pretty good. It's cheap for us. It's about half price for pretty much everything. So a lot of people come to Colombia to get plastic work done or like dental work done.
Mhm.
Like what's the word? Like beautiful
Cosmetic.
aesthetic surgeries
Yeah.
is common here, and you're going to be paying about half the price. So, like if you want to get a boob job, it's very common here in Colombia that a lot of the women, especially in Medellin, are operated. So that's a very common thing. You can get it here done. But like a dental work is really popular too. And just my experience with the hospitals have been pretty good. If I'm being honest, it's cheaper, it's better. I don't have insurance, but I haven't had to pay too much. It's still like cheaper than a copay would be in the States.
Let's touch on the last thing for the pro, which is things to do.
There's a lot of things to do. I think like parks and going, like enjoying the nature is really nice. There's a lot of like parks around the city. They have like Parque RV, which is a little bit outside the city. You take a cable car to get there. It's like a big nature park that's a little outside the city. And there's also Guatape, which is about an hour away from Medellin, which is a nice tourist attraction. And all the little pueblos in Colombia are really cool too. They have a really big club bar scene if you're into that, like going out and partying. You just got to be careful because there's a lot of druggings happening against male tourists at the moment because men are just being done with women. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean,
What about going to the beach? Like if you want to go to the
yeah,
beach.
if you want to go to the beach, you have to go to Cartagena, which is another city, which is from Medellin. The flight is not expensive. It's like $50, $60.
Hmm.
So it's easy to get there. But in Medellin itself, they don't have beaches. They have some pool stuff, but like no, they don't. It's like in a valley. It's like in the mountains in the valley.
Yeah, I guess I should rephrase that. Like getting to the beach. Like how is that experience?
You could take a bus, but that's like 20 hours. I would not recommend that. If you're a
Oh,
foreigner, just take a plane, man. Just go on a plane. It's cheap and it's like an hour long. It's really
oh,
fast.
that's not
Yeah.
bad. That's
Yeah.
that's like if you're living in LA or or I should say
Going to
Whittier.
San Francisco. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Oh yeah, the flight. No, I was
Yeah.
gonna say like if you want to get to downtown LA in traffic, I mean you're gonna spend more time in
Yes. Yeah. That's
yeah,
fair. Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Okay. Sweet. So let's hit on the cons of living in Colombia and Medellin. So first con we have is pollution and traffic.
Yeah, man, it's only gotten worse. When I was there 2 years ago, the traffic was bad. And I heard now the traffic is literally impossible. It's just as bad as LA. I remember when I went back to LA, my mom picked me up from the airport and we were in traffic 2 hours, bro, go back to Whittier. And we had to take the side streets to get home, but it's just like that now. And there's a lot of traffic in the metros as well during like peak hours. I think it's like 5 in the morning to like 9 a.m. and 4 to like almost 8 p.m. And the metros are just packed with people. I would say the pollution is pretty bad too. You can tell, like as soon as you get into the city, you just smell. There's just so many cars and gas everywhere. And the tricky part is because it's in a valley, none of the air can get out. It always just circles back in. And there's a lot of people in Medellin. You're gonna see. It's like LA. It's a big city.
So that makes sense. Yeah, if you're in like the heart of LA, there's tons of traffic and pollution as well. And it's I'm sure it's different, way different kind of vibes or scenes,
Right.
but kind of similar. So
Yeah, I
let's
would
hit.
say like Medellin culture is very similar to LA culture. And it's like sunny all the time, so the people are kind of like that. They have like a fake nice. So they'll say what's up to you and they're friendly, but a lot of times in Medellin they'll want something from you. That's kind of how it is in LA too. People are nice, but they're because they want to rise the ranks or they want something.
Yeah.
And it's very superficial there as well, which is why it's kind of hard to date. The women there are beautiful. They're super beautiful, but trying to find a relationship is very difficult because a lot of these women are they're just very superficial.
Yeah, there's a difference between dating to date and then dating to find a wife. So
Exactly. Yep, you're right.
I hear you. I hear you. Let's hit on the second one, which is petty crime.
Yeah, it's big right now. There's a lot of robbings happening. I think the two things that you need to look out for are robbings and druggings. Druggings if you're men, like the date rape drug, scopolamine. I think that's what it's called. And a lot of men meeting girls on apps, and then they get drugs, and then the women with accomplices will come and rob them. There's also a lot of petty theft on the street, especially for Apple products. Apple products here are like for Americans are worth twice as much, but for them it's worth like 5 times as much. So here's an example, right?
Sheesh.
So for us, a Mac computer costs $1,300, and for Americans it'll cost almost $3,000. But for Colombian and their money, it costs $10,000. So that's why what Apple products here are really sought after because they're just worth so much. And the average minimum salary here is 1 million a month. So if an Apple thing is worth 10 million, and they sell that, whereas the minimum wage is like 1 million a month.
That's
So
like
by selling that, that's like a 10
year-
months of work.
a year salary
Yeah.
almost. Yeah.
Yeah. Almost a year's salary with just like the Apple computer. Isn't that crazy?
That's insane.
Yeah.
And then they see like foreigners walking around with it like nothing. Like there's
Yeah, exactly.
You're like,
Of course you're gonna, is you have a target on your back.
that makes sense. Cover your or don't show off your Apple products. Or keep
Just
them.
anything. Just don't be
Yeah.
flashy. If you're flashy, you're gonna have a target on your back, and it's almost guaranteed you're gonna get robbed. That's unfortunately how it is in Medellin right now.
Mhm.
If I'm being honest.
Yeah, no, that's what this is for. This is honesty hour.
Yeah.
Let's number 3, lack of Western products.
Kind of. I mean, maybe a lot of things that you're used to in the States, you may not find here. But for me, the issue is not really finding products because you can find, toothpaste or mouthwash, like those basic things you can find. It's more like trying to find the food that I miss from back home, like trying to find good Asian food. They have good sushi, but like Korean food is kind of They have Chinese food, but it's not really good either. So I mean, it's getting better. And there's an Indian restaurant in Medellin is actually really good. But just in general, I would say like the food options are very lacking here.
Yeah, I heard the Asian food is just like from other people. They're like, it's okay.
Yeah.
But tell us about more of the restaurant that you opened.
Yeah, it's called Ni Hao, and it's in the city called Manizales. And the whole entire the concept of it is like authentic Asian food. So the recipes are my recipes, and I worked with the chef. We had to fix them for a Colombian taste palette. For
Hmm.
me as an Asian, I like a little more garlic. like it saltier with plain rice. They like the rice flavored with the flavor a little more like sweet and salty. So we had to change it a little bit to fit what they wanted.
Oh.
And we also sell like a version of ramen, but the ramen is closer to like the Chinese version of ramen than it is to the Japanese version. So the taste is closer to the Chinese one, and it's the best, in my opinion, it's the best ramen in Colombia.
Okay, okay, all right, all right. I'll have to come and try it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah,
no, that's cool. You guys can check out Wes's channel. I'm sure you talk all about your restaurant and stuff. So
yeah.
please, yeah, go check that out. It looks good. I'm not gonna lie. I've seen it. I'm like, it looks bomb.
Thank you,
But
man.
I love Asian food, so I'm like a big,
Yeah.
so like I'm a huge
You
fan.
got spoiled, bro. Like because I love Mexican food too. Because living in Whittier, literally you can go. You have a Thai place next to a Mexican place, next to a Korean place, next to an Arabic place. Like that's common, you know.
Yeah, yeah, which is not common in the world.
No, it's really not. We're very blessed in the States to have that.
Okay, let's go into the fourth con, which is Spanish. So, like as a foreigner coming down, you kind of must know Spanish or be willing to learn.
Yeah, to be honest, in Medellin, you can get away with not speaking Spanish, but your experience is going to be really crappy. You're not going to be able to do a lot of things. You're going to be very limited. You're always going to need a translator. A lot of people are going to try to take advantage of you price wise.
Mm.
So it's just things to look at because I know a lot of people like they just get lazy and they don't want to learn a new language. But if you want to meet people, like if you want to meet a partner, if you want to be able to have a better experience, you have to learn Spanish. And if you go out of the bigger cities to the smaller cities, it's almost impossible to get by without speaking Spanish.
If people wanted to learn Spanish, what's a good way to learn in Colombia?
Yeah, I would recommend going to a school. I'm partnered with a school. It's called Elefun, ELEFUN in Medellin, and they have a place in Poblado and Laurel. It's like the two big tourist spots. And I would recommend taking lessons with them. But here's how I would do it: I would take lessons for 3 months, but I would span it over 6 months. I would take lessons. I would take a break, practice with your friends, go back, take a week of lessons, take a break, and practice. And when you do that on off system, it gives you time to improve and get better. Because here's the issue with a lot of times, like you study for 4 hours, and what's the last thing you want to do? Go home and practice, right? You just want to go home and watch Netflix or hang out with your friends and speak in English. So I recommend taking 2 hour lessons a day and do that for a week. And then the next week, go hang out with your friends, go experience life, practice what you learned, and then come back and take more lessons and do that on and off for 3 months. And then you'll get pretty good.
Nice. That's great. I love that. That's a pro tip right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Pro tip, bro.
All right. All right. Cool. Lastly, one of the cons is the visa restriction or restrictions. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, Colombia. I think they're changing the rules as we speak. You know, every month it's something different. I heard that it's pretty easy to get like a digital nomad visa. You have to make a certain amount of money. I think it's like $800 a month. It's not even a lot, and you can apply for that. But that doesn't apply to citizenship. So let's say you get married, you stay for 2 years because I think they give it to you for 2 years. You stay for 2 years, you get married, and then after I think 5 years of residency, you can apply for citizenship. But those 2 years with the digital nomad don't count to the your residency. So once you get married, you have to stay 5 more years, if that makes sense. With the retirement visa, I don't know too much about that. If you want to open a business here, it's tough because there's a lot of like obstacles in the way, what I've heard, and the government taxes you a lot if you're a foreigner. So I wouldn't recommend that. You can just go in as a tourist visa. You can stay for 6 months. You're allowed up to 6 months. You can overstay your visa. They're not super strict about it, but don't quote me on that because I think they're going to start to crack down on it. Like for me, when I first got here, they were pretty lenient, but I think they're going to start cracking down because a lot of foreigners are taking advantage of it.
Got it. Got it. But yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and if from my understanding, it's 6 months, so like calendar year. So
Yeah, for every calendar year. So what a lot of people do is they'll come like July 1st, stay till December 31st, leave the country, come back January 1st, and you can come back in and you get a new 90 days. No, 100. You get a new 180 days.
Yeah, so it's like you have like a year almost in a
Literally,
sense
exactly,
without having to like. Well, you can't technically do a visa run if you're on that kind of a visa. If you're
Right. Well, if you
because
that's only works if you're on a tourist visa, but if you have a digital nomad visa, any other visa, you can stay without a problem.
yeah,
But yeah, Colombia's pretty lenient about it, but the rules are changing. So who knows what will happen in the next few years?
yeah, yeah. Well, sweet. That kind of wraps everything up. You guys make sure to check out Wesley's content. It is really awesome if you're thinking about moving to Colombia or if you are just interested in, yeah, a plethora of stuff on his channel, lifestyle, just in general, and food. Just yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff. What's the best way to follow you or to reach out to you, Wes?
Yeah, if you have a message to me, you can follow me on Instagram, Wesly. You can find me on YouTube, Where's Wes? Or if you want to listen to my music too, because I'm also, that's my main gig. I'm a musician. Wesly Thomas, Wesly Thomas. And then you can listen to my music on any streaming platform.
Yes, sir. Cool. You know, we're gonna throw in some music at the end of some of your music if that's cool.
I can send you whichever one you want.
All right, guys. Till next time. Peace.
Telling myself lies, just how many times does it take?